There are many things that can sway someone's opinion on a game. A deal breaker for one person might be what makes the game great to another. For me, whether or not I enjoy a game really boils down to 5 main sections: story, characters, combat, exploration, and music. Not necessarily in that order. Admittedly, when I came up with that criteria, it was more geared towards RPGs, but I start all my thoughts on videos with the same intro, so haha, I got you. We're not really going to be talking about most of those categories besides like level design, which I guess is technically exploration, and the music, of course. All of this discussion will be to the backdrop of you guys seeing how many attempts it took me to beat the whole game. I want to put it on record here that this video is going to be a lot more anecdotal and a lot more personal than a lot of my other videos, but because I am talking about Sonic the Hedgehog, I feel like it's important context for why I feel the way I do about this game, and why it was very significant for me to finally beat it. So without further ado, let's get into my thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog 1. So, ever since I was a kid, we've had Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2 on the Wii. If you're a newcomer to my channel and you do not know me at all, first of all, hello. I welcome you. And second of all, it's really important that everyone knows or remembers that I was chronically incapable of finishing games until I was like 15. I would usually get over emotionally attached to one character or place, or I would get stuck on a boss or something, so I would just restart or replay the same parts of the game over and over. I played the first dungeon in Dark Cloud, all the way up to Luca in Final Fantasy X, and the prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2 more times than I ever even cared to count. That was just the kind of kid I was. So, a game like Sonic the Hedgehog, a platformer, something I'm already bad at even now, and factoring in how young I was, it never was anything that really interested me. When I got to high school, I decided I wanted to put an end to my non-completionist ways and actually start finishing some of the games I wanted to play. I started with the Final Fantasy series because my mom introduced it to me when I was a kid, and it's been my favorite game series since I was 6. So, you know, I started with that and I just kept going and playing games. So by the time I was finishing high school, I had bloomed into somewhat of a gamer. Probably not a gamer by most people's standards at that point, but I was at least hitting like gamer light status. I had an acquaintance that I knew since middle school, and serendipitously we ended up sitting next to each other in my grade 11 math class. I considered him a friend before that, but really he was more of those like school friends, or like one of those like work friends you have that you don't really know how, like you don't really communicate outside of like the limitations of the place where you know them. Long story short, he ended up becoming one of my best friends. He's still one of my best friends, and his hyperfixation was 200% Sonic the Hedgehog. Just everything Sonic, like when the movies came out, like he was so excited. And because he loved it so much, I wanted to play it too, because I wanted to share in his joy. Honestly, he would always give me these like really long talks about the games before I started playing them, just different tips and tricks on different levels, some behind the scenes stuff with the development, and he was also always there to carry my ass through certain levels because I'm bad at platformers. If any of you have also watched my Hollow Knight Let's Play, you know that firsthand. However, therein laid a little bit of an issue. I'm about to talk about some mental health stuff, so if any mentions of things pertaining to that bother you, then here is your warning to click off now. When I was in high school, I had really bad depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. And cutting was really my biggest outlet for those feelings. I also had a lot of trouble controlling my emotions and just all around really low self-worth and self-esteem. The funny thing was, I did all the right things to deal with them. I took medication, I was in therapy, I had a good support system, yada yada. But unfortunately, I was actually misdiagnosed, and I have since learned that what I actually have is BPD, hence why the meds I was on weren't actually helping me, and the therapy I was doing wasn't really guided towards what I actually needed help with. So long story short, ages 11 to 18 were a pretty tough time for me. And unfortunately, mental health issues really do affect your life in so many ways, big ways, small ways, and sometimes stupid ways. And one of the stupid ways it affected me was that I would get really, really angry when I couldn't do something in a game. It was all tied to, again, the self-esteem issues, because when I didn't get something immediately or I struggled, I would use it as a way to continue to talk badly about myself. In my mind, if I couldn't finish something as simple as a game, then I couldn't do anything right, and it really was just like that negative spiral. I was really one of those people that derive value in myself from any numerical judgment, be it from something as societally important as grades to something as stupid as how many lives or tries it took me to do something in a game. It was a really toxic and harmful way of thinking, and my original playthrough of Sonic the Hedgehog at the behest of my friend was what made me realize a lot of this stuff about myself in retrospect. I didn't notice it at the time, but as I got a little wiser, I was kind of like, oh, that's interesting to know about myself. My friend, bless his soul, lent me his copy of the DS version of the original Sonic collections because it had save stages, so it made it a little bit easier for me. Now, it sounds very silly to say I struggled through playing a game because it really is just playing a game, but to me, at the time, it really was just that, a struggle, and it was a slog. I struggled through it, and it just made me feel really shitty every time I turned it on. But seeing my friend happy and hearing him talk about and share something so special to him made me really happy, so I decided it was worth it to keep trying despite my own issues. I ended up finishing both Sonic 1 and 2. I never got through 3, and I ended up returning his copy to him after one particularly bad manic depressive episode. I am now a few years out of high school. I was properly diagnosed and am currently just doing all around so much better than I was back then. I still get angry sometimes, fun fact, but I've kind of come to realize that because of my disorder, I kind of just feel big feelings, and I know how to regulate them a little bit better now and step away from things if I start slipping back into that toxic mindset that I was so stuck in. So, relating this all back to the video at hand, recently I was writing a list of potential games I wanted to cover on the channel. I recently did Wind Waker, and I played the GameCube version, which I played on my Wii, so every time I booted it up, lo and behold, I saw Sonic the Hedgehog. I didn't want to play it while I was playing Wind Waker because I was so busy with school that it took me forever to get through Wind Waker, but once I was finished, I booted up the Wii and I was like, what the hell, sure, I'll give it a try. So, Sonic the Hedgehog is a platformer, as we probably all know, and what makes it unique is its utilization of momentum, or go fast and get rewarded for it, because really no other platformer had that kind of gameplay at the time. Also, arguably, Sonic was a character that had a lot of personality in the original game, especially considering it came out in 1991. Just through his different animations, his idols, his game over animations, his like when he's like falling, like when he's like on the edge of something, you get this sense of a character who's kind of flashy and overdramatic and also really impatient, which makes sense. He really was the king of tood and sass, which is what I like to call him. And that was really cool because, again, you didn't really get a sense of the characters back then owing to the technology of the time. And Sonic's really the only character I can think of that had that kind of personality at the time in which those games were released. Now, a little disclaimer, I'm not versed in any modern Sonic adaptations. I've never seen the movies or played any of the more recent games. Something I do want to correct but haven't yet. So I'm not sure how well my interpretation of his character based off of the original game translates to his character now, but that was just how he seemed to me based off of only his original appearance, and I just thought it was cool that you could even get a sense of his character just from that. Now, there are a lot of things in Sonic 2 that I like over Sonic 1, and I feel like the two biggest things are that each zone is only 2 acts in Sonic 2 instead of 3, like they are in the original, and also you can do the charge up spinny thing in Sonic 2 that you can't in Sonic 1. However, I do actually like the special stages in Sonic 1 much better than the ones in Sonic 2. I just wanted to point out the 2 things I didn't like because those 2 things are, in my opinion, a big part of what makes Sonic 1 feel like it drags a bit more than Sonic 2. But I am digressing. This is not a comparison episode. I don't mean to compare them, so that's like really the only comparison I will be doing. But I actually really like that Sonic 1 opens with Green Hill Zone, which rewards you for utilizing the momentum or go fast mechanic, and then immediately is followed by Marble Zone, which penalizes you for it. I hated Marble Zone when I first played Sonic those many moons ago for that reason, that it forced you to slow down and focus on precision platforming. But now that I've played through the whole game with a level head, I think it's genius. The game shows you both ends of the extreme. It teaches you about the momentum, but then reminds you it's still a traditional platformer as well. And every subsequent zone falls between these two on how it should be played, and it's up to you, the player, to make that judgment call. I prefer levels that let you go fast just because I find them to be more fun and a bit more intuitive. So I really love Springyard Zone and Starlight Zone and Green Hill Zone, of course. Springyard Zone is the third one, is the third zone, and Starlight Zone is the fifth zone. I fucking hate the Springyard Zone boss, though, because Sonic 1 is kind of unforgiving with the checkpoints right before the bosses. That's, like, really my only other complaint about this game. Often, the balloons kind of make it so you either can't grab rings or you have to backtrack quite a bit to grab them. And Springyard Zone is the one zone that is very, very nice, and you can go into the boss fight with, like, a shield and a million rings, but it won't matter because chances are you'll fall to your death at least once anyway. Conversely, Labyrinth Zone is the bane of my existence and can go to hell. Labyrinth Zone is the fourth zone, and it is just the worst combination of being forced to slow down and unforgiving checkpoints that I mentioned. And on top of that, you also have to be worried about drowning too. Literally, the drowning music in Sonic makes me tense up. Like, it's a fucking trauma response. I'm not even joking. Not to mention, the boss of the Labyrinth Zone, which isn't really a boss, is kind of the most egregious of unfair checkpoints in the game. The balloon is right after the last of the rings. So if you have none, you have none. And if you die once, you have none for the rest of your attempts. The game does give you a shield, which is nice, but I couldn't do the platforming in the final act with just the shield. I needed to have the rings because I needed at least 2 hits to get through it because I suck. The first time I got to Act 3 of the Labyrinth Zone, I burned through, I think, 15 lives because I was just stuck at, like, the stupid balloon. But I already mentioned Starlight, so we're just going to head right to Scrap Brain Zone, which is the 6th zone, and in my opinion is kind of the perfect middle ground. I had a bit of a tough time with it until I remembered the holy grail of Sonic advice: always stick to the high ground. Once I was using that advice, it made it a lot easier because I stopped falling to my death all the time. I think Scrap Brain Zone really is like that perfect combination because it does let you move quickly through a lot of it, but it also forces you to slow down at certain points as well. I really like the spinny circles that you could like run on and like bounce up. I really like those, but then I hated like the big saws that you would have to like kind of time your movement to. So it kind of had like both, best of both worlds almost. The final zone is literally just the boss fight against Dr. Robotnik / Dr. Eggman. Obviously, I wasn't paying that close attention during the lectures. I'm not sure which one is the correct name to use this early in the series. But that fight is pretty easy once you know to just stand to the right of the pistons and then stand between the widest energy balls. It's honestly like pretty forgiving, a lot more forgiving than I remember it being, so yeah, it's not bad. It kind of feels like Scrap Brain Zone is meant to just be like really challenging, and then the final fight is just it's just kind of there just for the sake of there being a final fight. So yeah, final ranking from least favorite to most favorite zone is Labyrinth Zone, Marble Zone, Scrap Brain Zone, Springyard Zone, Starlight Zone, and Green Hill Zone, obviously. And the best music in the game is Green Hill Zone, obviously. And then honestly, all the music's good, actually. I'm literally like trying to think, like I'm trying to do a quick ranking in my head because I didn't write one down. But I actually really like Marble Zone's music, even though I listened to it on loop for ages when I was in high school. But I honestly think my favorite track in the game is the one from Labyrinth Zone, which is what makes it the worst, because it's just like, no, you're my favorite track, but you're my least favorite zone, so I hate hearing it. But little side note, I was talking to a friend, a college friend, about Sonic 1, and he said that it was a poorly designed game because of the levels like Marble and Labyrinth. And while I was struggling through the Labyrinth Zone boss, I wanted to agree. But now that I'm through it, I really do want to reiterate that I actually really love the diversity in each zone, and I think that I don't think it equates to poor level design, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know, maybe that's a generally held opinion now that Sonic 1 had poor level design, but I don't feel like forcing you to slow down was part of the poor level design, if that makes any sense. I think that was actually a really smart decision that made the game more diverse and interesting. But I digress. Over the course of like 3 days, I beat the game, and it was not 3 days straight of trying, just FYI. I beat it just over the span of 3 days, so it didn't even really take me that long, which was so crazy. And honestly, seeing the credits and the ending screen made me so happy. It might sound small or stupid, but sometimes recovery really is just in the little things. And the fact that I was able to beat the whole game without save stages and while giving myself grace and letting myself fail and learn without tearing myself down just made me feel like, even if it is in some small way, I have grown as a person in the last 4 years. I think it's so easy to hyper-focus on backsliding and bad days that it's important to take the time to acknowledge things you're proud of or happy about, even if it is stupid. So yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog won. I could never hate you. I will not be trying to get all the Chaos Emeralds though, because I don't hate myself that much. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep going with Sonic. I also own Shadow the Hedgehog 2005 because it is literally the Dirge of Cerberus of the Sonic series. So yeah, potentially more Sonic content coming soon, which I'm very excited about because I've graduated and I can handle playing it now. I'm such an emotionally mature adult. Yippee! So, thank you so much for listening to this video, and I will catch you on the next one.